I don't stay at motels. Not usually. But that night, I didn't have a choice. The storm had rolled in fast, an angry black wall swallowing the sky, and my old Chevy wasn't built to handle roads that turned to rivers. I was somewhere in Nebraska, halfway through a long-haul drive from Denver to Chicago. The GPS was shot, the highway signs unreadable under the pounding rain, and when I saw the flickering neon sign that read vacancy, I didn't think twice. The place was called Pinewood Motel. It sat just off the deserted highway, a long, single-story building with maybe 12 rooms, all facing the parking lot. The office was dimly lit, its fluorescent lights buzzing like dying insects. The moment I stepped inside, the smell hit me. A weird mix of mildew, stale coffee, and something else. Something off. Behind the counter sat a man who looked like he'd been there forever. Late 60s, wiry frame, hollow cheeks. His name tag said Raymond. Need a room? His voice was dry, like paper crumpling. Yeah, just for the night. I pulled out my wallet. Raymond eyed me, then slid a key across the counter. Room 8. No maid service. No noise after midnight, he said. His gaze didn't leave mine, like he was waiting for me to object. Yeah, that's fine, I muttered, taking the key. Outside, the rain had eased into a steady downpour. I hurried across the lot and unlocked the door to room 8. The second I stepped inside, I regretted it. The place stank, like something rotten, something festering just beneath the surface. The walls were yellowed, the carpet damp under my boots. A single bed sat in the middle, its floral comforter faded and threadbare. Against the wall, an old TV hummed with static. The bathroom door was slightly ajar, revealing a cracked mirror and a sink stained with rust. I should have left, should have turned around and driven through the storm. But I was exhausted, and the rain outside made it easy to pretend that nothing was wrong. Then I saw the closet. It was the only thing in the room that looked new. The door was freshly painted, a deep mahogany brown, standing out against the motel's decay. The handle gleamed, and it was locked, not with one of those cheap motel locks. This one had a deadbolt. From the outside, my stomach twisted. I stepped closer, pressing my ear to the door. Nothing. Just as I turned away, something scraped against the wood. Slow, deliberate. From inside the closet, my breath hitched. My hand hovered over the lock. Then, from the other side of the wall in the room next to mine, a scream. Long, wet, then silence. I was not alone in Pinewood Motel. The scream sliced through the motel like a jagged knife, then cut off so fast it was like someone had pressed mute. I froze. The only sound was the rain drumming against the window. I turned toward the wall that separated me from room 9. Nothing but silence. No movement. No voices. Had I imagined it? Maybe it was the TV from another room. Maybe someone was just watching a horror movie too loud. Then something inside my room moved. A soft, deliberate thud, like someone shifting their weight on the other side of the closet door. I took a step back. The air felt thick, heavy, pressing against my skin like damp cloth. My brain was screaming at me to get the hell out, but my body wouldn't move. Instead, I reached out, slow, hesitant, and touched the closet door. The wood was warm. Another scrape from the inside. I yanked my hand back. Nope, no way in hell. I grabbed my bag, ready to leave. I didn't care about the rain, didn't care about the storm. I was not staying here. But as I turned toward the door, click, the closet lock. I whipped around just in time to see the deadbolt slide open. I didn't wait. I lunged for the motel door, grabbing the handle locked. Not just locked, jammed like someone had welded the damn thing shut. I twisted and yanked with everything I had, my pulse slamming against my ribs. Behind me, the closet door creaked open. I didn't turn around. Couldn't. Then breathing. Not mine. Something deep, rattling inches from my back. The lights flickered. The TV screen turned to solid black. No static, no channels, just a dark, empty screen. Then the reflection. A figure, hunched and wrong, stepping out from the closet. Its limbs were too long. His head tilted, snapping sharply to the side. One arm dragged against the floor, fingers twitching like something newly alive. The skin, if it was skin, was stretched tight and sickly pale, veins pulsing underneath like something trying to escape. Then it moved. Fast. Straight for me. I slammed my body against the door. Bang. Nothing. The thing was right there. Its breath cold against my neck. Something clicking inside its throat like a broken radio trying to find a station. Then, boom. A knock. Not from inside. From the motel room next door. The thing behind me stopped. Another knock. Then a voice. A man's. "Hey, you okay in there?" The spell broke. I didn't look back. Couldn't. Instead, I threw my entire weight against the door. And, suddenly, it opened. I stumbled out into the cold, damp parking lot. The rain had stopped. The air was thick with humidity. And in the buzzing motel light, I saw him. A man in his 50s standing outside room 9. His face was pale, eyes darting to my open door. "You heard it too," I breathed. He nodded, stepping closer, lowering his voice. "I was in there. Room 9. His hand trembled as he pointed to my room. "That thing," he swallowed hard. "It was in my closet an hour ago." I stared at the man in front of me. The dim motel light flickered overhead, casting sharp shadows across his face. His eyes, wide hollow, weren't looking at me anymore. They were fixed on my open door. The door to room 8, where that thing still was. My stomach turned. "What do you mean it was in your closet?" My voice came out shaky, barely a whisper. He swallowed hard, shifting on his feet. "I checked in a few hours ago. Room 9. Everything seemed normal, until I went to the bathroom." He dragged a hand through his graying hair, took a breath. "When I came back, the closet door was open. The way he said it made my skin crawl. I know I didn't open it," he went on, "but I figured, hell, maybe it was just loose. But then I saw the scratches inside." His voice dropped even lower. Deep ones, like something was trying to claw its way out. A shiver ran through me. "Did you see anything?" His lips parted. He hesitated. "Not at first. I shut the closet and tried to sleep. But around midnight, I woke up, and the door was open again." His voice cracked slightly, "And something was standing inside it." My breath hitched. Tall, thin, bones pushing against the skin like they didn't quite fit. But the worst part, his hands clenched into fists. It was smiling at me. The word made my stomach lurch. "I couldn't move," he admitted. Like my body just shut down. It stood there for so long, watching. Then, slowly, it started crawling onto the ceiling. Like a spider. He shook his head. "I don't know how, but the moment I was able to move, I ran. Locked the door behind me and never went back in." I stared at room 9. Its door was slightly open. Dark inside. Silent. The man exhaled sharply. "I tried to leave, but Raymond," he gestured toward the front office. "He wasn't there. No staff. No one. So I knocked on your door." He hesitated. "And then I heard that scream." We both turned toward room 8. The air felt wrong, heavy, charged with something unseen. I licked my lips, throat dry. "We need to get the hell out of here." He nodded, stepping toward his car. But then, click. We both turned. The door to room 9 had swung open. And inside, in the darkness, something moved. I barely caught it. The flash of something pale, something long-limbed shifting along the ceiling. Then it crawled toward the door. Fast. I didn't think. Didn't breathe. I just grabbed the man's wrist and ran. Behind us, a sound, inhuman, guttural, like something trying to laugh but choking on it. I fumbled for my keys, hands shaking so bad I dropped them. The man scrambled for his own car, but his door wouldn't unlock. A new sound. Not from room 9. From the front office. We turned. Raymond was standing behind the counter, face completely blank. He just stared at us. Then slowly, so slowly, he smiled. And every single door in the motel unlocked at once. The sound of the motel doors unlocking sent a spike of ice-cold fear through my spine. I turned. Every door, from room 1 to room 12, stood slightly open. And something was moving inside them. Shadows shifted in each doorway. Tall, thin figures lurking just beyond the threshold. Their limbs were wrong, their heads tilted too far, their eyes reflecting light like animals caught in the dark. The man beside me, James, he said his name was frozen, gripping his useless car keys like they could somehow save him. Then, Raymond, the damn motel manager, let out a soft, breathy chuckle. I snapped my gaze back to him. He was still behind the front desk, still smiling. Way too wide. You should have stayed in your room, he murmured, voice like paper tearing. James moved first. He lunged at the office door, trying to push through, but it didn't budge. I turned back to the rooms. The things inside were stepping out now, one by one. Tall, emaciated bodies, bones pressing against translucent skin, arms too long, legs bending the wrong way. Their heads twitched and jerked like marionettes. Their mouths stretched open, but no sound came out. Then they moved. Fast. I didn't think. Didn't breathe. I just grabbed James's wrist and ran. We tore across the parking lot, shoes slamming against the wet pavement. The figures moved too, their bodies lurching forward like broken puppets, their arms swinging wildly as they chased us. James tried his car door again. Still locked. I dove for my truck, shoving the key into the door. Click! It unlocked. I flung myself inside, James scrambling into the passenger seat. I slammed the doors just as something slammed against the window. A face, or something like a face. Its skin was stretched too tight, eyes like black pits, mouth twisted into a grotesque grin. Tapped the glass with one long, bony finger. I threw the truck into reverse, tires skidding against the wet asphalt. The things didn't stop moving, didn't stop grinning, their mouths opening wider. I floored it. The truck screeched backward, then lurched forward as I slammed it into drive. One of them lunged, its hand grazing the side mirror, but I didn't stop. I tore out of the parking lot and onto the highway, the neon vacancy sign flickering in the rearview mirror. James was gasping beside me, his hands white-knuckled around his seatbelt. We didn't speak, didn't look back. But as the motel disappeared behind us, I realized something. The rain had stopped. The road was dry, like the storm had never even been there, like it was never real. James turned to me, his voice barely above a whisper. What the hell was that place? I didn't have an answer, but as I checked the mirror one last time, my stomach dropped. Because in the back seat, the closet key from room 8 was sitting on the seat. I slammed the brakes. The truck skidded to a halt in the middle of the empty highway. James gasped, bracing himself against the dashboard. What the hell? I didn't answer. My eyes were locked on the key sitting in the back seat. Room 8. It was impossible. I had never taken it with me. I left it inside the room. But there it was, cold metal gleaming under the dashboard lights. James followed my gaze, his face drained of color. We need to get rid of it, I whispered. Without thinking, I grabbed the key and threw it out the window, clattered onto the asphalt, landing somewhere behind us. I didn't wait to see where. I slammed the gas and peeled off down the road, heart hammering so hard it hurt. Neither of us spoke. Not for a long time. Only the sound of the tires against the road, the distant hum of the night. The storm was gone, the sky clear. The air was too still. After what felt like forever, James let out a shaky breath. We tell someone, right? He turned to me. The cops, the FBI. Someone has to know about that place. I wanted to agree, but something deep in my gut told me it wouldn't matter. Who would believe us? That a motel in the middle of nowhere housed something inhuman? That the manager smiled too wide, and the rooms were filled with things that weren't people? They'd think we were insane. And maybe we were. Still, James pulled out his phone. At least let me check the map, he muttered. Figure out where the hell we even are. But when he unlocked the screen, his face went pale. I glanced over. What? James turned the phone so I could see. His call log. There were missed calls from a number that shouldn't exist. NO caller ID, 12:15 a.m. NO caller ID, 12:16 a.m. NO caller ID, 12:17 a.m. The last one was still ongoing. A call in progress. I didn't even have time to react before the phone crackled, and then a voice, soft, paper thin. "You should have stayed in your room," James screamed. I grabbed the phone and threw it out the window, watching as it shattered against the pavement behind us. We drove in silence after that. Neither of us said a word. We just wanted to get as far away as possible. Epilogue: 2 days later, I got curious. I pulled up my laptop, opened Google, and typed in Pinewood Motel, Nebraska. No results. Nothing. Like it had never existed. Like we had never been there. I sat there, staring at the screen, feeling sick. But then I noticed something. A new email in my inbox. No sender. No subject. Just one attachment. A photo. With shaking hands, I clicked it open. It was room 8. My motel room. The closet door was wide open, and standing inside it was me. I slammed my laptop shut. My pulse pounded in my ears. That picture, it was me, standing inside room 8's closet. But I had never been inside it. James. I had to call James. He saw everything too. Maybe he got something, an email, a message, anything. I grabbed my phone and dialed. It rang twice. Then, "The number you are trying to reach does not exist." A chill ran down my spine. I tried again. Same thing. Like he had never existed. My breath quickened. I had just seen him. He was real. He had to be. I yanked my laptop open again and searched his name. James Holloway, Nebraska. Nothing. No social media. No missing persons reports. No records at all. I sat there, hands shaking, until I noticed a second email in my inbox. No sender. No subject. Just a plain text file attached. I hesitated, then clicked it open. It was a list of names. James Holloway, Room 9 David Langley, Room 4 Sarah Whitmore, Room 6 Megan Hart, Room 12 Lucas Finch, Room 7 Daniel Cross, Room 5 Anna Reyes, Room 11 at the bottom. One final name. My own. Ethan Carter, Room 8. A date was written beside each name. James's date was yesterday. Mine was tonight. My stomach twisted. I wasn't just a guest at Pinewood Motel. I was on its list. And my reservation wasn't over yet. I stared at the list. My name. Tonight's date. I was never supposed to leave. A cold wave of realization crashed over me. The motel hadn't let James go. It had just let me think he was free. I had to move. I grabbed my keys, shoved my laptop into my bag, and sprinted to my truck. The second I got inside, I locked the doors and jammed the key into the ignition. The engine wouldn't start. I tried again. Nothing. The street outside my motel looked too quiet. No cars. No pedestrians. Like I wasn't just in my apartment complex. Like I was somewhere else entirely. Then, a tap on my window. I jumped, my breath catching in my throat. A man stood outside my truck. At least he looked like a man. His face was off, his smile too wide, his teeth too straight. His eyes were dark voids, swirling like ink. He tilted his head at me, knocking gently on the glass again. I knew that if I rolled down the window, I wouldn't be Ethan Carter anymore. I'd be someone else. Or worse, something else. I gripped the wheel. Think. And then I remembered the key. The one I had thrown out onto the highway. The room 8 key. But it was here, wasn't it? I looked at my passenger seat. Empty. My blood ran cold. Something moved behind me. Slow. Deliberate. I didn't turn. Couldn't. A voice, just inches from my ear. Time to check back in. The last thing I remember was the feeling of something crawling over my skin. Then, darkness. I woke up in a motel room. Not my apartment. Not my truck. Room 8. The sheets were cold. The air smelled of mildew. I turned my head toward the closet. The door was open. I wasn't alone. I heard the sound of a car pulling in outside. Another guest had just arrived. I opened my mouth to scream, but nothing came out, because I wasn't Ethan Carter anymore. I was just the next name on the list. I don't remember how long I sat there, staring at the open closet. Minutes? Hours? Days? Time didn't feel real anymore. But I knew one thing, I wasn't alone. Outside, A car pulled into the lot, engine humming, tires crunching over wet pavement. Another guest, a new name on the list. I wanted to move, to warn them, to scream. Don't check in, don't open the door. But I couldn't, because I wasn't me anymore. I was just here, waiting. Then a knock at the door, soft, rhythmic, like someone tapping a melody they'd played 1,000 times before. My lips parted, and before I could stop myself, I answered. Come in. The door swung open. A man stood there, soaked from the rain, keys in hand, looking just as lost as I had been that night. He blinked at me. Hey, I think I got the wrong room. I'm supposed to be in. He checked the key in his hand. Room 8. I smiled. For the first time, I understood why Raymond always smiled. Welcome, I whispered, because Pinewood Motel always had a vacancy. And now so did I. The new guest hesitated in the doorway, dripping wet, confused, just like I was. He glanced down at the key in his hand. Room 8? That's gotta be a mistake. I just smiled, because it wasn't a mistake. I stepped aside, and after a moment of hesitation, he walked in. The second the door clicked shut behind him, the air changed, heavy, dense, like the room was breathing. His face shifted, an uneasy frown settling in. Smells kinda weird in here, huh? I didn't answer. I was watching the closet, waiting, because I knew what would happen next. A soft tap from inside. He turned toward the sound. What was that? Another tap, louder, then a scrape. His expression twisted. He stepped back. Man, what the hell? I moved behind him, quietly, carefully. Another tap. Then the door creaked open. And for the first time since waking up here, I saw it. Tall, grinning, bones pressing against its skin like they were fighting to break free. The new guest tried to run, but I grabbed him, because that was my job now, to make sure Pinewood Motel always had a vacancy. The door slammed shut, the lights flickered, and by morning, room 8 was ready for the next guest. You're still here? Still reading? That means you haven't figured it out yet. See, the Pinewood Motel doesn't just take guests. Takes stories. Takes you. Right now, you're thinking it's just a story. Just words on a screen. Nothing real. That's what I thought too. Until I woke up in room 8. Until I heard the closet door creak open behind me. Until I felt something watching from the dark. The moment you read your name on the guest list, the moment you start dreaming of a motel you've never been to, that's when you'll understand. Because Pinewood Motel always has a room waiting. And now it's waiting for you. Stop reading. Seriously, you don't want to go any further. Because if you do, you'll start to notice things. A flickering light in your hallway. The faint tap, tap, tap when you're alone. The feeling that your closet door was a little more open than you remember. That's how it starts. That's how it finds you. You might think, I don't even know where Pinewood Motel is. How could I end up there? But the thing is, you don't go to Pinewood Motel. It comes to you. And when you finally see that flickering neon sign outside your window, when you hear that soft, rhythmic knock on your bedroom door, you'll know. Your room is ready. And there's no checking out. You've read this far. That means it's already started. By now, you've probably heard it. A soft knock when no one's at the door. The creak of a closet opening by itself. Maybe, when you wake up in the middle of the night, you'll notice your bedroom door is slightly ajar, even though you swore you closed it. That's not a mistake. It's your reservation being confirmed. You might not remember booking a stay. You might think this is just a story, but Pinewood Motel doesn't care, because there's always a vacancy. And now, so is your name on the list. You won't know when it happens. One night, you'll close your eyes in your own bed and wake up in room 8. And when you hear that closet door creak open behind you, don't turn around. Just smile, because it's your turn to welcome the next guest.